Still on the road. This is week 3 of macro, and then we get into the questions. So back to the Clarity Act. I don't think that's going to get passed. I think that there's just a lot of things in the way for that, actually getting through Congress with the SAVE Act and the PACE Act and other things on their mind. I think that those are going to take precedent over the Clarity Act. I think that the PACE Act probably gets through after they pass the SAVE Act, because that's the first thing that they have to vote on. I think that could get through before midterms, but I think Clarity will get pushed out. I think that it might take until early 27 to actually see Clarity push through. But as long as we have oversight from the OCC, the CFTC, and the SEC issuing joint guidance, XRP, I think we'll do just fine. As soon as the OCC issues guidance on stablecoins and yield and what that's going to look like, I think the rest of this will move forward here. It can unwind. The bond market will be stabilized by the demand that the banks will have for treasuries here domestically. I won't have to worry about, the bond market collapsing. We are looking at crazy high prices for the stock market. I talked to my group, the mastermind earlier today. I've been out of the stock market for a long time. I can only talk about historical norms and where we're at today. About where you're positioned and why you're positioned there might be a good time to do that. So good buys in the stock market are somewhere between 10 and 13 on a PE ratio. If you buy there, you tend to have significant upside. In the past, if you have bought in the past at somewhere between a 23 and a 24 PE ratio, where we've been at Markle P, 10 years, you have an average negative 2% per year return in the stock market. Not good. We were at a 25 or 26 on PE ratios, the highest that they have ever been. Stock market, it's been a fantastic investment. And again, you never go broke taking profits, right? I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm just saying it might be a good time to have a conversation. Your positions in the market if you are closer to retirement. If you are 45 or older, highly encourage to have a conversation about where you're positioned in the market and how much more upside there is for you are going to, be able to save for retirement and manage that so that you have stuff in place to be able to retire. Another 15 years, if you're already in your 50s, and people are trying to retire sooner. Digital assets, I think that you might have a really good opportunity to do that if you're positioned well. So again, nothing here is financial advice, only for entertainment and educational purposes. You should always consult with a financial advisor, CPA, or an attorney before decisions. Any of the opinions expressed this evening are my opinions. They are not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group or any of its. I am not a licensed financial advisor. I don't hold any credentials. I'm a qualified family office professional. I have some, but outside of those two things, I don't hold any credentials that would allow me to give you actual financial advice. And you should take everything that I say. People that are smarter than me. I'm just some guy on the internet. So with that being said, trying to think if there's any dollars that's been frozen by Tether in correlation with the sanctions on Iran. I'm pretty confident that the Iranian government's going to come out. Threatened it multiple times now. I do think that that's the next escalation for the conflict. They have disregarded any of the peace treaties or likelihood that they're going to be abandoning their nuclear program. On goes the war, on goes the Strait of Hormuz, continuing to be shut down, and now they're attacking other neighbor nations. That things are going to escalate here, and I do think that's going to be from them cutting off internet or doing something with those cables in the strait. Again, don't think it's going to get passed. I think the SAVE Act and the PACE Act are probably going to get passed before that, and it's not going to make it in before midterms. Week on the 14th. But that doesn't mean that XRP and these other digital assets that the CFTC and the SEC have issued joint guidance on. A little bit of green on the market here this weekend. Things are starting to turn around. Life's starting to come back. And for a fun ride from here. So with that being said, very grateful for my wife. She does a lot of things. She holds it down when I'm traveling. She's a big supporter. Hasn't always been perfect. I don't think any marriage is, but we've worked through that, and life is good. She sees the vision, and she's supportive. So I appreciate her and everything that she does. This person says, "Happy wife, happy life." That there's definitely truth to that saying. Finally, gonna get her the house and the barn and all the other stuff for her life and the things that she wants to do. It's a give and a take. It's not ever perfect. And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be just a one-sided deal. You should be able to make sure that you and your partner both get what you want out of a relationship. Like I talk about all the time, trying to align things where both of you get what you need and what you want out of something. And sometimes you're going to have to give and the other person's going to have to give in order to be able to get to that alignment. And sometimes you're going to disagree on how you get somewhere. But if you can work through those things and explain your side, and hopefully people can meet one another halfway, then things will be okay. You'll make it through it. This person, they gave me a super chat above, and then I couldn't see it, and they did it again. Thank you so much. They say, wanted to encourage others to join the Beyond Broke Mastermind. Carbon 2 is amazing. Blessed to have spent a little time with you, the tea lady, Honest Ames, and his amazing wife. The relationships we build are investments. Thank you for that. If you do want to join the mastermind, we would love to have you in there. We've got about 17,000 people there in the group. You just go to beyondbroke.com, use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for $2 there in the group. Whether that's social or Carbon 1. I don't know if we got $2 for Carbon 2 or not, but you can at least get in there, try it out. It's month to month, no contract. Check it out, see if it's something that you want to do. I will say this, money is the cheapest form of transaction between you and somebody else. Teaching you information is probably higher leverage than that. Creating network or connections, access are probably a level higher than that. And then if you can get both of those things at the same, that's really what the group's about. So people kind of graduate from one level to the next as they mature in their financial, their own portfolio and where things are at. It makes a big difference. And have questions and do, that side of things. So if that sounds cool to you, if you want more in real life events than any other community, and if you want, access to private deal flow that you're not getting get anywhere else, financial education, business resources, all available there in the group. We would love to have you. And on the other side of price appreciation, we are shutting it down. There will be no more discount. Thousands of dollars to join the group there, and it will be invite only. So if you want to get in now before price moves, I would encourage you to do so. Dragon Lord says, legend therapy session. What's up, dude? I feel like I've awoke from the matrix, yet my wife is still unaware. Thoughts on how to downplay my excitement until price appreciation. Thank you for everything you're building. Carbon One and waiting to onboard. Everybody kind of realizes things at different times, you know. I don't know how you downplay the excitement. That's hard for me. You can ask my wife. She still doesn't believe all of it, but she, believes enough that she supports what I'm doing and sees the enthusiasm and passion I have for it. So she's behind it, which again I very much appreciate and value. If your spouse isn't necessarily on board and they don't quite understand this, they're not alone. That's another thing I would say that's good about the group is the spouses tend to get together and have conversations. And when they see that there's other people that are on the same page, it makes a difference. Give me 1 second. Thanks, sir. Appreciate you. All right, I'm back. Carl brought me some food. I had to cut out of dinner early to come be with you guys, and he was nice enough to bring me the rest of my dinner. So yeah, I mean, look, you can be, unless you relate to them in a specific way that they understand how this is going to work. So I don't know if your wife works in banking or if they have something in their life that's a friction or an issue that could be solved by blockchain. And you can use that lens to explain to them what this technology does and why it's important. Most people need something to relate it to, right? So I'll give you an example. And my wife still isn't fully on board with this, but we're going to go there. So horses, right? You guys know my wife's an equestrian. The AQHA and the other federations that manage the registration of different types of horses, or it's not even breeds. So, there's thoroughbreds, there's paint horses, there's quarter horses, there's draft horses, there are mixed breed horses, and all of those are registered, right? If sometimes they're not, they can be grade. But when you register a horse, it has their full lineage of who their parents were, how they're bred, their pedigree, basically. And if that was on blockchain, that'd be immutable. It'd be very easy to figure out where this horse came from, who it was bred by, its parents, its grandparents, the full lineage of the horse. And you can put all of that on blockchain. They're not going to do that. They're very slow to adopt new progressive technologies for the AQHA and the other federations that manage that information. And some of it's kind of pay to play, right? So if there's some, backdoor dealings on stuff, same thing with the banks and the other things that are going on, right? But people can see that and they can say, look, like this is a problem. It would fix these things. If it moved on blockchain, it would do boom, boom, boom. If you can figure out what your partner's passionate about and explain it to them through that lens or in that context, they will get it. And I'm like, oh, that's what you're invested in, is the thing that's going to do this or that, or it's, the technology. Okay, I can get behind that. I can see why that would be used. It creates efficiencies in these reasons, and it's applicable to me. It actually affects me because of these reasons, right? So that's how I tend to approach things. Again, my wife thinks that that's 10 years away. It's never going to happen. That those federations are not going to do that. But it was a lens through which she would understand why it's important and what the technology actually does. This person says, Mega Legend. There are 2 senators who published the stablecoin agreement. If that was the last missing piece, why is the OCC summary missing now? Again, I think that was mainly around the Clarity Act. I think the OCC took comments that were due back on May 1st, and they're going to be the ones that make the adjustments. Sam says 3 a.m. night shift again. What's up, dude? How far do you think Japan can keep kicking this can for? I'm learning Japanese. I'll be fluent by the time they have their reverse carry trade. Again, until the OCC actually comes out with stablecoin regulation, they're going to continue to kick the can. They have to have that in place for the banks to be able to issue stablecoins and stabilize the bond market. If that's not in place prior to that, it's going to be a bad situation for the global financial system. So, between that and the Fed master account for Ripple, I think those are the two things that we're finally kind of waiting on here. Infinite Growth XRP says, please describe how XRP will be used with the DTCC, even though other networks like Canton will be heavily used. So Canton's token is a governance token. It's how you pay fees on that network. It doesn't settle value. So Canton, Ondo, Securitize, and there are many other networks and protocols out there for the tokenization of stocks. So people think that the network that the assets are tokenized on is also going to provide the back-end settlement, which may end up being the case. Canton was formed in 2023. You've got some, people involved in that project that are more of a pump and dump type investor. We've seen, that correlation happen with other projects that they've invested in. I'm not saying that Canton is a pump and dump. That obviously has real world utility. There are people that are looking to use that network. I'm just saying that the people that have invested in it, aside from the DTCC, tend to be correlated with those types of investments in the past. Absolutely not. Just means you should be aware of those things. Okay. Now, for XRP in particular, I believe that is going to be what's used to settle the back end of the stock market. So tokenization per exchange, whether that's NASDAQ or NYSE or Robinhood and many others are tokenizing stocks. Just because they tokenize on one network doesn't mean they're going to use that token to settle, which is what coordinates settlement between clearinghouses and the brokers. Project Ion is what will do that. Directly with R3. That's been running for 3 years, almost 4 years in the background, ready to go. So the primary settlement mechanism for R3 is, you guessed it, XRP. And if you'll remember, one of the credentials that I did mention earlier is that I am business quota certified. So I've been through all of their stuff in order to be able to do that. And we've worked with R3 on other projects that I can't talk about, but I can talk about other things that they've done that are publicly available for you to go look up if you would like to. So all that being said, highly confident that XRP, if there's enough liquidity, and XRP will be used to be able to settle the back end of the stock market using Project Ion and the DTCC, irrespective of which networks or which tokens are used to tokenize the stocks themselves. Now, the multi-purpose token on the XRPL allows for stocks to be issued directly on the XRPL. You also got Ondo settling their treasuries through the XRPL through multiple exchanges. So again, back-end settlement, pretty confident, ends up right there. Looks like YouTube's working. We've got a decent number of people over here on TikTok. Again, appreciate you guys taking time out of your Monday to come hang out with me. Sorry for the technical difficulties. And hopefully, if you missed it, you signed off, you'll come back and listen to it. I say, once the reverse carry trade unwinds and we see a large dip in the market and Bitcoin, do you think XRP will dip before it takes off? There's going to be volatility. That's all I know. Does it go down? Does it go up? Or could you buy more? Look, here's how I talk about this. Okay, and this is how I think about it too, because I dollar cost average just like everybody else. Are you really going to be mad if you bought XRP at $1.30 or 90 cents, $1.40 or $1, $1.40 or 50 cents? If you bought Bitcoin at either one of those prices, do you really think you care? You don't. You don't care. You don't think about, I wish I had got it just a little bit cheaper. I would have had a little bit more. You got hundreds of millions of dollars. You don't care. So people that are, worried about buying the dip or getting the best price or this, that, and the other, we're building a product for that at DWP. Okay. We're working with Arch Lending to be able to average into the market with your cash position there to be able to trade off of candles and get you the best price over whatever period, if that's your biggest concern. But for me personally, I don't think it's going to matter a whole lot. And I know people, that could be a big difference if you had $100,000 to deploy, at $1.40 versus $1. Look, it is. I get it. But when XRP is worth 100,000 or $1 million, you're not going to care. You're going to have more money than you know what to do with. And as long as you understand capital preservation, you have a mission statement, core values, principles, you set up your family office, your work, it's not going to matter how much you got. Your family is going to be set for multiple generations. Thinking about like, well, I'm going to wait for the dip. You could miss the whole thing if you're waiting for the dip. And that would be a much bigger mistake than just dollar cost averaging in. So maybe you leave 10%, 20%, 30% for the dip that we may or may not see. Highly recommend that you have some allocation before this thing goes. And again, can't give you financial advice. This is just me talking to myself because I have these same thoughts. I'm like, well, maybe I could get a little bit more if I wait for the dip. I've been here too long. I've played that game too many times. You just look at the people that, didn't buy it at 50 cents in November of 2024 before it took off and then bought it at 70 or $1 or $2 or $3 and where they're at now because they didn't want to buy it at 50 cents because they thought it was going to 30. That's going to happen again. So again, not to get preachy or get on a soapbox. I've seen this happen to too many people and it irks me. And I've done it myself. So I'm trying to, help you guys not make the same mistakes. 3C7 says, hey, Jake, really enjoy and appreciate. Recommend anyone in Australia to structure advice and setup. We have a couple people that we work with over there. John Basilos. We also work with another crypto tax firm. If you want to reach out to us, you can just email us at info@digitalfamilyoffice.io. We will get you those resources. And again, you could just join the mastermind, and they're also listed in there for you. If you want to go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for $2 there in the group. All right. This person says, please get my super chat. Gervin. All right. Well, I will scroll back up, Gervin, and we will find it here. Tired Man 02 says, does XRP flip big cap? And that will happen through the XRP ETFs, likely a BlackRock ETF for XRP when it gets launched. KJ Kilk says, do you have any suggestions for good crypto or blockchain books? Not really. Book on the flight over here. I'll read another book on the flight home. I have not learned any of my knowledge on blockchain and crypto. Recommend YouTube. If you are someone that people like that out there, I'm much more of an audio visual learner. And I also learn from doing versus just reading stuff. Yeah, let me think on that. I don't have anything that is we got our books. You can do the that Max Avery and I authored. That's probably a good one. If you want some financial education, understanding of blockchain and crypto and how that it works with insurance products, using your crypto. But as far as understanding blockchain, smart contracts, oracles, all of I would just YouTube it. I would just look. I would learn the lingo, and I would YouTube each one of the words and see which videos come. And you're probably going to be pretty proficient with it by the end of that, if you're paying attention. Paul Smith. All right. I did not miss your super chat. Here it is. They say, how in Canton migration instead of R3/4 affect XRP's price appreciation and Ripple association with the DTCC. Again, tokenization of the stock and settlement of the back end of the stock market are two very separate things. Larry Fink has talked about one unified blockchain that does all of it. Canton does not settle value. It's a governance token, and you pay fees to be able to settle transactions on the network, but it doesn't actually provide settlement itself. So, all that being said, Canton cannot sit in the same role as the XRPL, and therefore cannot circumvent it. It's also not listed as a commodity issued by the CFTC. It came out in 2023. It doesn't have a 13 or 14-year track record of not going down and being tested and trialed in certain ecosystems by certain parties. I'm not saying it's not going to be used, but it's not going to replace the XRPL and XRP. And again, I'm just one guy. Okay. There's probably Canton bulls out there that think it's the end all be all. I would go listen to them too. I would go listen to other people that think both of them are garbage and that, there's something else out there like Solana that's going to settle the back end of the stock market. Listen to me and everybody else. Okay. And then organization, registered agent, maintain all of the records associated with the LLC to maintain the creditor protection that you're going to get from that, and everything in between. Meeting minutes, board resolutions, all the stuff for it to be an actual company, capital contributions, written actions, written consents, movement from bank account and your crypto wallets, all those things. Set up a bank account for you right there in the app, working with Uphold. So again, I don't think anybody has a better product than us, more streamlined than us, any of those things. But again, there's other people out there that do it, probably do it a little bit cheaper. You're just not going to get quite the full meal deal that we provide. And if you want to check that out, it's app.digitalascensiongroup.com. $1,500 all in, end to end, is everything you need there in the app for that for the LLC to make sure that among a whole bunch of other benefits, the government's not going to confiscate your crypto. Jayhawk Nation, Rock Chalk Jayhawk. They say, thanks for all the knowledge and challenge to do research. Doing a deep dive over the last 18 months, given full conviction on XRP will one day become the new global reserve currency. I mean, you can just Google it. Literally Google global bridge currency and XRP comes up. We already went over this one with Dragon Lord. Some people saying no sound over here on YouTube. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties tonight, guys. Out of the country and things aren't working like they're supposed to. But you can listen back to this later on. Reed Scott, my man, he says, thank you for all that you do, Jake, and for being the only one to open up the door to setting up our families and make sure they're set up for the future and helping others. Looking forward to having my crypto with DAG in Anchorage, and then I can breathe. We're looking forward to it too. I've said this before, but like, I figured all this stuff out selfishly. I figured out, how to structure my estate, mitigate taxes, the professionals that I needed to work with, how to orchestrate all of this and make sure the assets were secure. And then, working together with everybody else, we've been able to have enough leverage to be able to garner the interest of institutional managers and custodians and other people. just super blessed and grateful to have so many good people that want the same products and solutions that work for me and my family. And I think that's what gives me the conviction to come out and create things, because if I want it done a certain way and I know that it needs to be done this way and it's not being done this way, that's how I make sure that, we create it that way, and then other people also benefit from it. So thank you for the kind words and the support. And yeah, looking forward to working with you in the not too distant future as everything plays out here. And I didn't say this at the beginning, but it just came to my mind, talking about that. If you like, subscribe, share, that does help the algorithm. It helps the channel grow. We've got 189,000 followers here on YouTube. Or, if you're not a follower and you're over there on TikTok, if you could just go subscribe on YouTube. We're trying to get to 200,000. Just need a couple thousand more subscriptions. A lot of good videos and information over there. And just one little click goes a long way. It means a lot. So, Kingdom Within again says we already did that one. The patience on the questions. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom. And this person says leave and come back. Here's the app for those that didn't catch that earlier. If you need an LLC, Gen X has posted it here. It's over here on YouTube. You guys can't see it on TikTok, but app.digitalascensiongroup.com. Set up the LLC, or if you already have an LLC, you can bring it over and we'll make sure that you get a bank account, exchange account, lowest trading fees for any just regular, trading account that's out there, 1%. With no spread. So that's 1% on the transactions with no spread. Normally if you're trading on Coinbase or some of the other, accounts out there, they're going to be like 3 to 5% with the spread and the fee. We bring that way down for people that are trading inside of their corporation that they set up with us or that they migrate over. So would love to have you guys on there. And again, shout out to Uphold for supporting that on the back end and helping us be able to provide that for our client base. Omar says July, question, dollars, maybe. Thanks, Jake, for the info. I think, to be honest with you, Omar, and I don't mean to get people excited, it could take way longer. It could be September or toward the end of the year here. But with everything that's culminating here, I mean, really within the next 2 months, May and June, seem pretty salty. I don't think they can kick the can that July. We have some substantial price appreciation, and it is a hot girl summer for a lot of people with their investments in crypto. It looks like I've got to the end of the super chats. This person said, didn't R3 choose XDC? R3 did not choose XDC. XDC is an option to be able to settle, but doesn't have enough liquidity, nor does it have clarity here in the US. I love XDC. Talked to their foundation last week. We want to build a product for XDC. We've advocated for XDC for our clients to be able to hold it at Anchorage. We like XDC. It's not the settlement mechanism for R3. Sorry. And there's going to be a lot of people out there that disagree with me on that. And that's, again, okay. I'm just one dude. I just worked with R3, for a period of time on another project and got to go to their offices in New York. There's evidence of that. Speak with them on multiple different occasions about multiple different things that they're working on. Had an account manager that managed Citi, Goldman, BNY, and Bank of America separate of our account. But if you want to believe the other people out there that just read some stuff on the internet, you can be one of those people. You can read stuff on the internet. It's free. But to talk to these people and build things with them, I would argue is a little bit regular Joe. And again, I don't say that to be egotistical or biggity. I'm very blessed and grateful to have been in a position to work with those people on different projects. And that's afforded me, some information that let's see here. I think think I'm through all the super chats, and now YouTube's working. Maybe it's working. I don't know. We're about an hour and 10 minutes in. I'll probably hang out for another 20 minutes here and then wrap it up tonight. Maybe we'll just answer some questions over here on TikTok since we don't have a ton of questions over here on YouTube. This person says, Jake, from your live last week, do you still believe XRP can appreciate here in May? I do. The right circumstances have to play out, right? Like we have to see the catalyst that I'm talking about actually be the catalyst that drive price appreciation. We need an XRP ETF. We need the reverse carry trade to unwind. We need back-end settlement for the stock market. We need Japan to adopt XRP. There's a lot of things that need to culminate here for a significant rise in demand to be able to drive the price of XRP substantially higher here this month. However, it could take place. I'm not saying it can't. The further along we go, the more likely it is to happen. This person says, there's a lot of people asking me about how many XRP, is it enough? So our minimums at DAG are 50,000 XRP or at least $100,000 in crypto to be able to hold your assets there in institutions. Sometimes it doesn't even make sense for people that have that much because they're like, well, I can hold it on a cold wallet and not pay fees. Some people get the value. Some people understand that they're paying for institutional custody. They get a segregated bankruptcy remote account. It's insured up to $100 million. They get an advisor they can talk to. They get a bunch of things in working with us, and they're going to get access to all of these products. Loyalty is a big deal to us. We're going to always afford people that have been here opportunities before people that haven't been here. So if you are choosing to pay the AUM fees and be on board and participate in the ecosystem and help support what we're building, then you're going to get access to stuff first. That's how it works. So if you want to be in that camp, if you have at least 50,000 XRP and you want access to those types of products, or maybe you just want questions answered, go to digitalwealthpartners.net, go to the contact us form, fill that out. One of our advisors will reach out, answer all of your questions. And again, it's not the perfect fit for everybody. We don't encourage everybody to move all of their assets into Anchorage. We just want to be an option for people for peace of mind, for their long-term bag, and then also to be able to generate additional returns, be able to borrow against their crypto and get access to liquidity when they need it. This person says salty by June, like $100 salty. It's possible. 50,000 XRP. A lot of people think that's a lot of XRP for some reason. And at today's prices, like I get that, but a lot of people bought XRP at, fractions of a penny, or, under 50 cents for a long time as it stayed there during the lawsuit. What's your take on Crypto Phoenix and his administrative repricing theory? I talked about this in the mastermind earlier. I haven't listened to the video, so take it with a grain of salt. I probably need to go listen to it at this point because so many people have brought it up. I would love to see it. The only way that happens is from the BIS. The BIS would be the ones that could administratively reprice XRP. It's not going to be the US government. The problem that I have with that premise is that XRP needs to be elastic and dynamic and flexible in order to be able to continue to be the backbone of the financial system over the long term. If it's at a fixed and liquidity in the ecosystem, and as the network needs to expand, they're not going to be able to do that. So I think it's a price and demand dynamic. And then once it's at a high enough value, they'll start moving value over the network, and that'll provide stability or a floor where it can then you can continue to be an administrative repricing, like many people have speculated over the years. It's not a flip of the switch thing. This is an actual supply and demand situation where there's far more demand for XRP on the exchanges than there is supply. You'll see the chart gap up. That puts enough liquidity into XRP. People start using it to settle the back end of markets, Swift and other things. And then that maintains a price floor, but it doesn't cap it to the upside like administrative repricing would. Again, just my 2 cents, not the end all be all. There's tons of smart people out there. Go listen to everybody. You can come to your own conclusions. What are your thoughts on ZBEC and XRP partnership? That's great for payroll. I've got a whole video on ZBEC if you want to go check that out over there on YouTube. What do you think about meme coins? Not my game. I don't really look at them at all. Once the unwind happens, will price appreciation happen quickly? Time frame? Your guess is as good as mine. They've been very methodical, or much more methodical about this whole thing than I thought they would be. So it could take a little longer. But once things roll, I think it will happen rapidly. You need yield to join DAG. People don't need yield to join DAG, but we are working on yield products. And just realistically, to be honest with you guys, and like a little bit defeated on that. There's a lot of infrastructure that still needs built. Got an email from somebody else that I'm waiting to get an email from that I saw on my phone that could be a godsend, but I'm doing everything I can. Unfortunately, partners and institutions didn't build things the way that they should have. I've been telling them for years, literally, that things need to be built a certain way in order to be able to facilitate what people want and listening, which is fantastic, but it still takes time to get stuff done. So probably late Q2, early Q3 is realistically the earliest that we're going to be able to create yield. Now, there's one or two partners that could come back faster than that if certain things play out, but I think that that's probably the realistic time frame. And I hate that because we've been trying to it'll literally be about a year since we thought we were going to be able to do this to actually when we were able to implement it. And I pride myself in speed to market on stuff, and for it to take this long is just unacceptable. And that's what happens when you're dependent on partners to be able to facilitate stuff. And also, like, we have the regulatory compliance and everything that we have to make sure that things are in place and done a specific way in order to meet risk parameters and suitability for our clients. And there's lots of things we could do to just throw something at the wall and like hope it works, or like do something that's outside the purview of what we should be doing. We want to maintain a very high standard of compliance and set the standard in the industry. Unfortunately, that causes a lot of friction and delays. But I would rather be a little bit more cautious and get it done the right way so that we don't have issues, because I've seen what can happen if just one issue, things go very poorly for people. So we never want to put our clients in a situation where that could happen. And so if it takes a little bit longer and we get it done right, I'd rather do it that way than, risk it and be in a bad situation or do something that causes people harm. So can you touch on Canton? I already went over that like 4 times tonight, so I'm not going to do it again. U.S. Treasury meeting with Japan tomorrow. What is this meeting about? I don't know. That sounds pretty good, though. It'd be great if we saw some monetary action out of the Fed or Japan. And it's not going to be tomorrow if it's, unless they're flying here. If they're going to Japan, it is today. It's already tomorrow in Japan. Let's go to the bottom here. We'll grab any more super chats that we have, and then we will wrap it up. Rick Johnson, good to see you, dude. Finally. Where you been, dude? You're late to the party. He says, Roy Buff. Threats to XRP everywhere. HBAR, Tron, Tether. They're succeeding Hertz XRP price appreciation. Not really. Again, the XRPL has a DEX. HBAR just launched Atomic Settlement, which still isn't quite a DEX to be able to facilitate that. Tron, Justin Sun and everything that he's built has moved Tether around a bunch. MasterCard and Visa and everybody else that I've talked to is de-risked from Tether and won't touch it. Probably reasons behind that. Ripple did use Tether early on before they launched their own stablecoin, and now they've migrated away from that and they're using RLUSD. So all that being said, I'm not worried about any one of those 3 replacing XRP. I think HBAR will have its own utility. I think it'll tokenize the web and data movement. But as far as value transfer for back-end settlement of markets or institutional applications, nope. Please explain how XRP can skyrocket if these succeed. Again, because they're for different applications. XRP is an enterprise play. It's not a retail play. Do we need them all to fail? No, you don't need them to fail. Again, you have to settle to one unified ledger, and that is the XRPL. All of these other networks can also garner traction, but they're all going to have to settle at the end of the day back to one distributed ledger technology. Omar says, is the Clarity Act the start of two-class system? I don't think it's the Clarity Act, but I do think that we are moving toward a caste system. And I don't really like that. There's a pretty large bell curve, and right now people are moving toward the poorer end of the bell curve, which I also don't like because they inflate our money and it's not actually worth anything. And I think that they need to shore that up and back it with gold again. I think that would fix the majority of the problem for the middle class. However, with AI and technocracy and UBI, or high universal basic income, or some of these other things that they are going to implement, whether you want them to or not. And it's not because they're bad people. It's literally because I think this is the only way that we make it through this transitional period that we're about to enter. I do think it'll be a caste system. I think there will be people that live on that piece, and there'll be other people that have exorbitant wealth that are, wildly more successful and richer than others. And it'll be the people that have invested in this asset class. But it's not like you didn't earn it. Like if you've been here for 5 years and you've been patient or longer, some people have been here 8 years and they've been patient and they've continued to dollar cost average and they understand what they're invested in, you earned it. It's like nobody can tell you that you didn't. It's been the easiest way to earn it rather than building a business or doing other stuff that might require, additional capital or, blood, sweat, and tears. This is pretty simple, just dollar cost averaging into something that can completely change your life and your family's trajectory for multiple generations. But it's still work. It's not like it's easy to just hold something as it goes sideways for extended periods of time or goes down in value and you're underwater on it. Like, it's not easy. So, kudos to everybody that's still here. You're going to be in the upper class, I think, of the two-tier system that he's talking about. And I still think there'll be opportunity, at least here in America, but it's going to be significantly truncated in comparison to what it's been in the past, in my personal opinion. Southern Betrayal says, with exchange stabilization fund giving swap lines to countries, can that hurt the dominoes? No, the IMF's been around and been doing that for a long time. There's too much leverage that's been taken out by private parties from the Bank of Japan. That is the catalyst for the reverse carry trade, not the governments themselves. William, Mr. Kilgore says, Jake, what was the big deal about this week? I don't know. Look, in the past, I've posted, this week is supposed to be a big week, according to everybody else. And then everybody's like, you said it was going to be a big week, and then nothing happened. Bah, bah, bah. So I don't even post about that stuff anymore. I receive too much hate when I'm excited and then nothing happens because other people are posting that it's going to be a big week. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Could be a big week. I'm just here to enjoy it either way. So we'll see what ends up happening. But I'm probably never going to post or so hateful out there. All right, we'll grab 3 more super chats, then we're going to be done. Postmaster says, the legend, were you at Las Vegas? And if you were, I'm jealous. I didn't go to XRP Las Vegas this year. I had to get home. My wife had a rodeo, which ended up working out because they would never get back to us on a sponsorship. Some of our team was there walking around XRP Vegas, but we did not have a booth because they wouldn't allow us to, basically. So I don't know what the deal was with that. But we were for Bitcoin Vegas. We were sponsoring there. They were happy to have us. Anyway, yeah. So we were there. It was fun. We hosted an event Wednesday night and really enjoyed that. Got to see, 300 plus people from the mastermind group, and knocked it out over there at the Ghost Bar at the Palm. Had a good time. And again, appreciate everybody coming out for that one. Roughing it. Hey, ma'am. She says, can you please break down for me how a cold wallet can be hacked if both sides of the keys were seen? I don't quite fully grasp which variables in order to figure something out. If you only give it one, it doesn't have a direction to go. It doesn't have anything to pin it against in order to be able to run the computation in order to hack something. So keys are exposed in wallets when you do something. So when you send to a wallet, the key that you sent it to is exposed publicly because it had to receive those assets on that blockchain. When you send assets out of a wallet somewhere else, that exposes the other key. So then there's two endpoints on this, and a quantum computer could hack it. If you've only ever sent to a wallet, you've only ever sent in, only one key is exposed. If you've never sent out of the wallet, that key's not exposed. So if you've sent to a wallet and sent out of the wallet, both of those keys are exposed, and it provides a higher risk for quantum attack, which again doesn't even exist yet. We're probably 2 to 3 years away from them being able to stabilize 2 qubits together in order to be able to actually facilitate quantum computing at scale, and there to be risk for these blockchains and these wallets. But again, better to be safe than sorry. So, and that's not me saying that. That is David Schwartz talking about why that matters and how it works. So if you want to go find the tweet from David where he talked about quantum risk, you could probably just type quantum into the search bar in his Twitter and it'll come up. Reed Scott, again, he says, we need access to DAG hats, t-shirts, and hoodies for purchase. Quality ones, unlike the ones the ones our companies hand out. I'm never going to do apparel. It's not ever going to be a thing. For a multitude of reasons. So, you know, we've done a few things for the mastermind, but we will never do DAG apparel or hats or any of that stuff. We might do lapel pins, might do pins themselves. Maybe we'll do like a DAG watch, more affluent stuff, right? Like, I think, you know what? I'm not going to talk bad about anybody. It's just not within the brand or the scope that we're looking to put out there. I appreciate that you want to wear it and rep it and support it, but we will have other things that allow you to do that. Omar again, he says, how do you see the yield/reward thing going? What do the big dogs really want with the Clarity Act? I've heard several theories. What's your options? They're not going to pass yield to retail. They're going to do that through tokenized deposits. They want all the yield off the stablecoins, and they need it that way in order to be able to incentivize the banks to be able to issue the stablecoins, to be able to drive enough demand to be able to stabilize the bond market as we onshore all those treasuries when the reverse carry trade unwinds and Project Sandman unfolds. They need to incentivize them to do that. They're not going to pass those yields. Now, can other people use those same stable coins to be able to put those to work and pay people yield that are parking those stable coins with them? Sure. But the treasury yields itself, they're not going to be passing on to retail, in my opinion. Tokenized deposits, sure, completely different animal. And I think that does it. I think we have made it through the evening here, about an hour and a half. It's already late. It's 11:30 p.m. here, so I'm going to grab me some food and then probably pass out. Again, appreciate you guys taking time out of your evening to come hang out with me. I know, this is only 30 minutes into when we normally have our deal, but you can listen back to this later. This was recorded, at least on my side. The internet connection here wasn't great in the beginning. So DAG Rolex. Nah, we'd probably do more like, well, yeah, if we were going to do one, it probably would be a Rolex, to be honest with you, because Rolex makes millions of watches per year. The other large watch manufacturers like AP or Patek or, some of the other ones that I actually like, they're not going to produce a mass quantity of watches, whereas Rolex would. So maybe we'll probably go that direction. With that, I'm going to wrap it. Again, if we would love to work with you. If you want to work with us at Digital Ascension Group, you can go to app.digitalascensiongroup.com, set up your LLC, make sure that everything's structured the right way so the government can't confiscate your crypto. If you have that concern, I would rather be more concerned about, creditor protection, ability to mitigate taxes, structuring things the right way for anonymity. All those things are a much bigger concerns to me than the government taking your crypto. But hey, helps there too. If you want the trust and other things, you can just email us at info@digitalfamilyoffice.io. Our team will connect you with the best professionals in the U.S. to help you structure your trust for your digital assets, whether that's revocable, irrevocable, an ILET, a charitable remainder trust, whatever you need, we can take care of you. If you want to work on the wealth management side, just go to digitalwealthpartners.net, use the contact us form, fill it out. One of our advisors will reach out. If you need insurance, we do that as well. And we're going to consolidate all of this to just DAG in the near future to make it much more simple. But if you need insurance at the time that you're watching this, Xure Legacy, XURE legacy.com. Our team over there will take care of you for term insurance, whole life, annuities, all the fun stuff on that side. And if you don't know about any of this stuff, and you want to just starting my journey, or you have a full breadth of knowledge and you want really good people around you, you can join the mastermind. Just go to Beyond and use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar each of the first month, for $2 there in the group. Yeah, thanks again for taking time out of your Monday to come hang out with me. If you have any questions,